Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Have you ever felt like you were drifting through life? Like you were disconnected, searching for meaning, but never truly finding the answers? It seems like the truths that could change everything are always just out of reach, hidden in a dense fog. But what if those answers weren't out there in the world, but inside of you, buried in the shadows you've been avoiding? Carl Gustav Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist and psychoanalyst, widely recognized as one of the greatest explorers of the human mind, revolutionized our understanding of the psyche and reality itself. He didn't just study the mind, he mapped it out like a pioneer navigating uncharted territories. Jung often said that humans desperately cling to anything that gives them a sense of existence. We fight against the void, against the possibility of a meaningless life. But according to him, the meaning of life is not found in avoiding our conflicts, but in facing them head-on. Jung didn't see the human mind as just a surface-level mechanism. He saw it as a vast and deep universe filled with hidden forces that we often prefer to ignore. He explored the unconscious, the shadow, the fears, and the suppressed desires that we hide from the world, and more than that, from ourselves. For him, life wasn't just a random sequence of events or a race for success and recognition. He believed there was a deeper purpose, one that could only be discovered when we dared to venture into the darkest and most neglected parts of our psyche. His studies laid the foundation for some of the most significant ideas in modern psychology, from personality types to concepts like archetypes, the collective unconscious, and the true inner self. But Jung wasn't just an isolated thinker who arrived at these conclusions through mere theory. His journey was real, intense, lived in the flesh. He faced his own crises, his own inner conflicts, and at times dove into deep existential questions that would have consumed less prepared minds. Jung's early life and his first great conflict. Jung was born in 1875 in Switzerland, the son of a pastor. He respected his father, but also felt that the rigid beliefs he had been taught were limiting. This became the first great conflict that would follow him throughout his life, the clash between spirituality and skepticism. This internal struggle planted the seeds of his lifelong fascination with the unconscious and the mysteries of the human psyche, a deep confrontation with his own mind. Around the age of 30, Jung experienced something that would mark him forever, a profound confrontation with his own unconscious. He had visions, he heard voices, and for a moment, he feared that he was on the brink of madness. He even questioned whether he was developing psychosis or something similar to schizophrenia. But instead of running from these experiences, he embraced them. It was in this moment of vulnerability that he asked the questions most of us spend our lives avoiding. Who am I? Why do I feel this way? What is the true purpose of all this? This became his inner journey, and according to him, the real challenge of life, facing fear instead of running from it. Like all of us, Jung faced moments of doubt, fear, and existential crises. But unlike many, he chose not to run. He believed that moments of crisis and uncertainty were not obstacles, but signs, pointing toward a deeper understanding of ourselves. For him, the true meaning of life was not found in the comforts of routine, but was earned by facing one's own fears and diving into introspection. From an early age, Jung realized that human reality was far more complex than his fellow psychologists were willing to admit. He saw beyond the surface. He recognized hidden patterns. He felt the unseen depth of human experience. This was what led him to embark on his greatest journey, not a journey to conquer lands or accumulate material wealth, but to explore the unknown within himself, the path to psychiatry. Originally, Jung was interested in medicine, with no initial inclination toward clinical psychology. But his curiosity about mental disorders led him down a new path, psychiatry. In 1900, he began working at the Burghölzli Psychiatric Hospital, one of the most prestigious in Europe at the time. There, he studied patients with schizophrenia and for the first time came into contact with the work of Sigmund Freud, the man who would forever change his trajectory. The search for meaning. Throughout his life, Carl Jung showed us something fundamental. We don't find the light by running from the darkness. He believed that every crisis, every inner conflict, every fear we avoid is, in reality, a portal to something greater. The journey within ourselves is not easy, but it is necessary, because it is there in the shadows we fear that the key to our true essence is hidden. Now I ask you, have you ever faced a moment of crisis that in the end led to a profound transformation? Have you ever felt that the answers you were searching for were actually inside you all along? Tell me in the comments. Jung and Freud, a meeting of minds. When Carl Jung came into contact with the ideas of Sigmund Freud, he quickly realized there was something fascinating about the way the Viennese psychoanalyst explored the human mind. The interest was mutual. They began exchanging letters, debating theories, hypotheses, and discoveries. It didn't take long for an intense friendship and an intellectually stimulating relationship to form between them. Freud saw Jung as a successor to his legacy, someone who would carry on his work, expanding the frontiers of psychoanalysis beyond his time. But Jung was never just a follower. He absorbed, studied, reflected, and then dared to question. While Freud believed that much of human behavior was driven by unconscious impulses, primarily of a sexual nature, Jung began to sense that there was something more, something greater, something deeper, something more mysterious. For him, the human mind was not just a battlefield between repressed desires and social rules. It was a symbolic universe, a place where myths, archetypes, and ancestral images guided psychological development. The rift between Freud and Jung. This difference in vision was what ultimately separated them. While Freud saw the unconscious as a repository of forbidden desires, Jung saw it as a gateway to something much greater. The psyche, according to Jung, was a self-regulating system. It constantly sought balance, growth, and expansion. And for Jung, it was not only made up of the personal unconscious, but also of something far more profound, the collective unconscious. A universal level of the mind, shared by all of humanity. A concept that revolutionized psychology. This concept revolutionized psychology. It was a vision that radically expanded how we understand our identity and our connection with others. But this divide wasn't just theoretical. The relationship between Freud and Jung did not fall apart solely due to professional disagreements. Freud was unwavering in his belief that sexual impulses were the primary force shaping human behavior. Jung, on the other hand, believed that this view was far too limited. He argued that the search for meaning, spirituality, and symbolism played just as essential a role in the psyche as primitive desires. This difference created a rift between them, a rift that was never fully healed. The separation was painful for Jung, but marked a turning point. It became clear that his departure from Freud's circle was not just a personal break. It was a split within psychology itself. While Freud solidified psychoanalysis, Jung forged an entirely new path, analytical psychology, a path that would lead him to some of the deepest insights into the human mind, the shadow, the archetype that frightens us. If there is one concept of Jung's that continues to resonate to this day, it is the shadow. But what exactly is the shadow? The shadow is made up of everything we repress, ignore, or deny within ourselves. It holds the traits we have been taught to see as negative: anger, envy, greed, fear, insecurity. But it can also contain hidden talents and strengths that we fail to recognize in ourselves. Imagine it as a cluttered drawer of the mind, filled with parts of ourselves that we prefer not to acknowledge. But ignoring it does not make it disappear. On the contrary, the shadow always finds a way to manifest itself. How the shadows appears in everyday life. Imagine you're at a party. Suddenly, someone incredibly extroverted starts drawing all the attention. They dance, laugh loudly, and energize the entire room. But inside you, something feels off. You feel irritated. Why does this person always need to be the center of attention? You think, rolling your eyes. But what if this annoyance wasn't just a simple irritation? What if it was a reflection of something buried deep within you? Maybe, at some point in your life, you were taught not to seek attention. Maybe you suppressed your own desire to express yourself. And now, seeing someone freely doing what you once forbade yourself to do, your shadow reacts. This is the hidden power of the shadow. It projects itself onto others. The traits we deny in ourselves are often the very ones we criticize in others. The importance of integrating the shadow. Jung believed that ignoring the shadow is living only half a life, because within it, beyond fears, lie our untapped potentials. That talent you never had the courage to develop, that inner strength you always assumed you didn't have, that freedom to be who you truly are. Integrating the shadow does not mean surrendering to your darkest impulses. It means recognizing them and transforming them into conscious strength. Because only when we face our own darkness can we truly find the light. Yet throughout life, we keep pushing certain parts of ourselves deep into the mind's shadows. We pretend they don't exist. We suppress our fears, our weaknesses, our unacceptable desires. But according to Carl Jung, that's exactly why so many of us feel lost, disconnected, as if something is missing, but we don't know what. The great secret, Jung said, is that the shadow is not evil. It's simply unexplored. The more we run from it, the more power it has over us. But when we find the courage to face it, something extraordinary happens. We take back control. Instead of being dominated by what we repress, we integrate these forgotten parts and become more complete. And in doing so, we move closer to the totality of who we truly are. Jung believed that facing the shadow was one of the most important steps in the search for meaning. If we learn to confront the uncomfortable aspects of our psyche, we can begin to live more authentically, more fully. But he didn't stop there. The journey of individuation. becoming who you truly are. For Jung, the shadow was not just a collection of personal fears and flaws, it was part of something much greater. It was an essential piece of a deeper process, a journey he called individuation. What is individuation? Individuation is not about becoming perfect. It's about becoming whole, accepting all parts of ourselves, both the light and the dark. Individuation is the central idea in Jung's work. It's the process of discovering who we truly are, rather than just who we think we should be. But here's the challenge. Individuation doesn't happen when we avoid our problems or run from our fears. It happens when we face them head-on, the masks we wear. Jung believed that we are all born with vast potential, but as we grow, we learn to suppress parts of ourselves to fit into society. We put on masks. This is what Jung called the persona. The persona is the identity we construct to please others, to be accepted, to avoid conflict. And over time, we begin to believe that the mask is who we truly are. But deep inside, something feels off. We feel a void, a sense that something is missing, because we have lost touch with our true selves, the path to wholeness. Individuation is the process of removing these masks, confronting the shadow, and embracing our complexity. And this process isn't easy. It takes courage. It demands that we look at the parts of ourselves we would rather ignore, that we face painful memories and experiences, that we accept the aspects of our personality that society taught us to hide. And Jung warned, if we don't take this journey, we end up projecting our unresolved conflicts onto others. We blame the world for what we cannot accept in ourselves, finding peace and purpose. But when we embrace our complexity, when we accept our imperfections and realize that we are so much more than the image we try to project, something changes inside us. We begin to find peace, we begin to find purpose, and we begin to understand life on a much deeper level. The collective unconscious, humanity's memory. Among all of his ideas, perhaps Carl Jung's most revolutionary concept was that of the collective unconscious. Unlike Sigmund Freud, who saw the unconscious as nothing more than a storage of repressed desires, Jung argued that there was a deeper layer, a universal unconscious shared by all of humanity. According to Jung, this collective unconscious is filled with archetypes, universal symbols, and patterns that appear in myths, religions, and stories across all cultures and eras. These archetypes are the fundamental blueprints of the human psyche. They shape our thoughts, dreams, and experiences. Some of the most powerful archetypes include the hero, the journey of overcoming obstacles and achieving greatness. The mother, the archetype of care, nurture, and protection. The wise old man, the eternal seeker of knowledge and truth. The trickster, the one who challenges the rules and questions reality. These archetypes are not just symbolic figures, they are living forces within us. When we recognize these patterns in ourselves, we begin to understand our lives and the challenges we face. And more than that, we realize that we are not alone, because the experiences we go through and the obstacles we encounter are part of a much larger human narrative. We are connected to all who came before us and to all who will come after. Psychology as a path to meaning. Jung believed that we are not just isolated individuals trying to find meaning in existence. We are part of something much greater, and understanding the unconscious is not just an intellectual exercise. It is a path to discovering the true meaning of our own lives, because when we connect with the wisdom of the past, we begin to understand the present, and thus we discover our place in the world dreams, the gateway to the unconscious. Carl Jung believed that one of the most direct ways to access the unconscious, both personal and collective, was through dreams. To him, dreams were not just random, meaningless images. They were open windows into the deepest layers of our psyche. In dreams, the unconscious communicates with us through symbols and metaphors. The characters we meet, the places we visit, the events that unfold as we sleep, none of it is random. Each of these elements expresses our deepest fears, our hidden desires, and our unresolved conflicts. Dreams reveal more than we realize, but dreams don't just expose what we try to hide from ourselves. They also reveal the archetypes at work in our lives. The hero's journey, the confrontation with the shadow, the search for wholeness. For Jung, dream analysis wasn't about finding easy answers. It was an invitation, a call to engage in dialogue with the unconscious, to interpret its messages, and to use these insights as a guide for personal growth. Because when we start paying attention to our dreams, something extraordinary happens. We begin to understand the invisible forces that shape our lives. We confront our fears, embrace our potential, and move closer to wholeness, the fullness of our being. And this, according to Jung, is where the true purpose of life lies. A new perspective on purpose. Carl Jung's ideas challenge us to rethink what it means to live with purpose. He reminds us that life is not about avoiding discomfort or seeking external validation. Life is a journey within a journey to confront our shadow, to embrace our complexity, to integrate the unconscious parts of ourselves. And in doing so, we don't just find personal fulfillment. We become part of something much greater, a shared experience that transcends time and cultures. Because by integrating our own psyche, we connect with the wisdom of the collective unconscious. And this is how we discover our true place in the grand narrative of humanity, the true meaning of life. For Jung, the meaning of life is not something found out in the world. It is not in success. It is not in the approval of others. It is not in material achievements. The true meaning of life is within us. It is discovered through the process of individuation, the path of integration between the conscious and unconscious mind. It emerges when we find the courage to face the parts of ourselves we've been avoiding. So what is the true meaning of life, according to Jung? It is not a destination. It is a journey toward wholeness. And that journey begins the moment you decide to look within and face the unknown inside yourself. Now I ask you, have you ever had a dream that seemed to carry a deep message? Have you ever felt like your mind was trying to tell you something through the symbols in your dreams? Tell me in the comments. If this message resonated with you, like this video and subscribe to the channel to continue this journey with me. And share this with someone who needs to hear it today. Thank you for being here. Take care and see you soon.